Okay, so now we're getting into part two, which is the joins. This will be selecting data from two or more tables at a time. And so I think I'll do 13 through 15 in this video, and then we'll switch gears for the other couple of problems here. So number 13 says use implicit join syntax to select the following columns. And here we're pulling from invoices and vendors. So those are the columns that we're going to select, and we will sort this one by invoice number. Now, I think students tend to do really well with implicit versus explicit join syntax. So by now you probably know that, here we have our select clause, and we're selecting from the invoices and the vendors table. And this is implicit join syntax, so we do not have the word join in our syntax. And now here, don't forget this step. This is the where clause, which has you joining these tables on the common column. If we did not have this, if you stopped it here, which sometimes students tend to do, it'll still run, but you're going to get lots and lots of records, like maybe upwards in the thousands of records, way more records than there are data. So you have to complete your join by adding that where clause and joining on the common column. Now in this case, it's the vendor ID column, where each table has that vendor ID. That's what establishes the relationship between those two tables, is that common column. It's the primary key in the vendor table, and it's a foreign key in the invoices table. So that's implicit join. So number 14 says rewrite that previous problem using explicit join syntax, and here we actually have the word join. So the select clause is the same. Those are the columns that we've been asked to select, and this is coming from invoices join vendors on, and then that common column thing again, which is the same as it was in the previous problem. So just slightly different syntax here. We have explicit syntax. Now, one thing I want to throw in here is what if we had been asked to select the vendor ID from either one of these tables? I'm getting an error here. It says ambiguous column name vendor ID. And what that means is, okay, this is a join, and so we're pulling data from these two tables, invoices and vendors. Both of those tables have a vendor ID column. So you can't just say vendor ID here because it's ambiguous, meaning SQL Server's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I see a vendor ID in this table. I see a vendor ID in this other table. Which one are you talking about? So in that case, if we want it, we can display the vendor ID, but if we want to, we have to qualify it. And we do that by typing it. It doesn't matter. I could do vendors.vendor_ID, or I could have just as easily typed invoices.vendor_ID. I typically, when I'm qualifying a column, I'll go for the table in which that column is the primary key, which is why I went for vendors in this case. But as I said, you could have done invoices there too. But the point is the error has gone away. It's no longer ambiguous. I'm telling SQL Server precisely which vendor ID column I was talking about. It's the one in the vendors table there. Okay? Okay, and then one more here in this video. We have number 15. It says select invoice number, date, and total from the invoices table. Okay, fine. We have those. Plus vendor name, full address, city, contacts, full name, concatenated. Okay, that's a slight curveball in this problem. And the phone number from the vendors table. So, but limit the results to Federal Express Corporation. Use implicit. Okay, so there's a lot going on in this problem. But let's take it piece by piece. So I'm selecting these columns, invoice number, date, and total from the invoices table. Okay, and then the vendor stuff. Okay, we want the vendor name, address, city, state, blah, blah, blah. And then the contact name concatenated. Look at this. Okay, concatenated. So I want the name displayed in the results like a person's name, first name, space, last name. And I can do that. This is a calculated column in the query. The vendor's name exists in two separate columns, first name and last name in the table, but we can bring it all together for the sake of our query results and just kind of concatenate that and make it look like a nice, well-constructed name with a space in between. So we have a calculated column, or specifically a concatenated column, which we're naming contact name. Okay. Kind of an easy technique. Okay, and then we have the phone number in there too. And we were told to use implicit join syntax. So we see this from invoices, comma, vendors. Don't forget your join clause. Okay, your where clause, where you're joining on the common column. That still holds true here. Otherwise, you're going to get thousands of results, a lot of redundant results. Okay, but we're also told to limit this to Federal Express Corporation. So I have a compound where clause. So take care of this first, and then we can limit the search results by putting an and on that. And the vendor name is Federal Express Corporation. So that should work. So a lot going on in that problem. Nothing too difficult, though, just like a lot of pieces. And, you know, that raises a point when you're doing a problem, whether it be homework or exam. It's easy when you have a lot thrown at you in one problem to forget something. So just, you know, be careful and attack it one piece at a time and just kind of move through it and build it little piece by piece.